All right, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am here with Breath of Life Conversations. We are doing another episode, and here we are. This one I feel like is so important. It's so important for so many different reasons. Um, Truly, it is something that like touches my heart in a very deep way. And the reason is very simple. It's because I'm a nurse. I'm an ER nurse. I see people with a variety of different illnesses, disorders, dysfunctions, diseases, whatever it is that you want to call them. I see them a lot. I see them all the time. And I am just floored by some of the most ridiculous ignorance that I have ever seen. I have ever seen people who have zero business talking about these things. And I think that it's dangerous. I think that it has the potential to be, what's another word besides dangerous, y'all, that I could be using to describe how asinine it is for people who have no idea what it is that they're talking about things. You guys, one of the things that I just cannot abide by is the fact that there are people out there who think that they can just say whatever the hell they want because either they feel like they're just entitled to, which is so many individuals, people who believe that because they live in America and because we have a constitution that says free speech, that just means that you get to say whatever the fuck you want. It's not true. It shouldn't be true. And people are, like, in my opinion, vastly misunderstanding what that actually means. Before I get too much on a tangent, I'm just gonna like round it out by saying what I probably already said now multiple times in the first couple of minutes of this podcast, which is if you don't know, if you do not have expertise, please, for the love of God, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, because it is truly not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to be talking about not stuff that you do not know. Okay, so today the title of this episode is called He Said What? The Mental Health Edition. Okay, because somebody said some shit and I got opinions. Okay, I got opinions, but you know me, because I don't just got opinions. I got my receipts, y'all. And I got somebody who will help back me up and or shut me up because she is not afraid of putting me in my place if I get something wrong. And I feel like if there's one thing that's missing in this world, it is accountability and being held responsible for our ideas and our knowledge, our intellectual property, and just knowledge in general. I get it, y'all, that like the world has kind of decided to look like it's going to shit. I do. But that does not mean that we can just then say, like, fuck it all. Fuck it all. And decide that we're not going to be responsible for what it is that we're saying. So, let me introduce you to one of my star pupils and colleagues and peers. Her name is Annamarie Green.
Thank you.
And before y'all decide to think, oh, she just brought on somebody that she loves, hold your face. Hold your face. Because you guys have, if you have been following Breath of Life Conversations, like you know that this is a new platform right here. Same name, but twice as much goodness. This revamp has been a long time coming, but you have seen her before. You will see her again. And just so that you know, like, exactly like how fantastic. I'm gonna let her introduce herself here quick, and you're gonna understand why it is that I want her on, and why I want her opinions, and why I want her knowledge on this topic. And then we're gonna like dive into it. So, Miss Annamarie, can you tell us who you be?
Yes. Hi, guys. So thank you so much for that. It's like, oh, star people, my heart is so full. My name is Annamarie Green. I am a licensed professional therapist. I have my LCSW and I am a professional intuitive. And it goes beyond that. I am an expert master healer. I am pioneering new ways to understand, treat, and heal mental illness in the mental health industry. My goal is to turn it on its head. And so that's what I am an expert in. I help combine psychotherapy with energy healings so that we can help people become symptom-free in 12 weeks or less. So,
Yeah.
yay.
Let me show you. Let me like get you show you. Some of you might be seeing it. I don't know. So you might be just hearing this. But let me share the thing that has brought us here today. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me share this and let us have our discussion. Okay. Okay. We
Oh, I'm
are
glad yeah. Oh gosh.
Here we are, you guys.
Matt.
You,
Thanks.
this is a very well-known gentleman, okay?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna be honest, before I play this, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not here to like bash and say that this gentleman has no value. That is
Yeah.
not the case. He, I have, I still follow him. Like if you go on my thing, you're gonna be like, oh, Abigail follows this person. Yes, I do. 100% I do.
Yeah.
Because there is some value to everyone. But that doesn't mean that everything that every individual says, whom I follow, I'm going to agree with. I'm going to be straight up and honest
Yeah.
about that. And
Yeah.
for
So much love, so
everyone,
much light, but also you
yeah,
have to be accountable for the things that you say. And that, I
absolutely.
mean, we can get into it, but to me, it comes down to as a spiritual or intuitive professional and leader, we have a responsibility to share our gifts ethically. And this felt like it was not very ethic, not in integrity. I have lots of thoughts, but play it. That's
Okay,
let's go.
here we go. Let's listen. Let's listen.
All mental illness, all mental imbalances are a self-obsession problem. So whether it's depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar, all mental imbalances stem back to the same root cause, which is being more concerned with myself than anything else, being the center of my own universe. That always will create problems because you aren't just this self. You are everyone else as well. You are the whole universe. And so until you learn to love and care for everyone else the same as you do for this physical body, then you'll always have this imbalance. And that's what a mental imbalance is. So it's like, go find me a person who genuinely cares about the needs of others above their own needs and is spending their life out there serving and helping people, who's miserably depressed or bipolar or has some huge mental imbalance. I've yet to meet such a person in my life. Everybody I've met who cares more about others and being of service to others are the happiest people I know. So I think that gives us a lot of pause to consider that maybe all mental imbalances really do come down to this one issue. Who do I love more, myself or others? And if I love myself more than I love others, I'm going to have an imbalance. If I can learn to love others as myself, we have equal balance there. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is what Jesus was trying to teach everyone. This is the way to live in a balanced way in God's universe. You've got to give that love away to everyone else just as readily as you give it to yourself.
Okay. So before we jump into discussing it, I want to read the caption here that he placed. And it says, show me someone who serves others out of duty or obligation, and I will show you an unhappy person. Show me someone who serves, quote unquote, while keeping a mental score sheet of all the things they've done for others, and I'll show you an unhappy person. Show me someone who serves with no thought of self, but only because they feel the love of God for others, and I will show you a happy person. God's love can only be kept and enjoyed within the self so long as one is continually giving that love to all others. God's love is not exclusive or conditional. Therefore, So long as our love is exclusive or conditional in any way, we limit our capacity to experience God's love for us to the same degree we are limiting God's love toward others. The only way to feel truly worthy of God's love is to see everyone else as worthy of God's love. Okay. And if you guys are wondering, this is a gentleman named Aaron Abke. I also, before we jump in and speak to this, I wanted to give the fullness of this individual because you guys, this is a brand new style of podcast. I'm not just going to come on here and be talking about how I have some sort of feeling. I'm not going to bring people on who have expertise on this without giving all the receipts. Okay. Okay. So I am on the site, AaronAbke.com. Okay, this is his website. And on his website, as you scroll down the first page, he gives his journey. Okay. And so I'm just going to be very quick about this. Obviously, this is not everything, but I think this is going to give you a very good understanding of who he is. Okay. It says in 2012, he became a pastor at 22. Okay, yes, that dates him. Do your math. This is when he was born. Okay, if he was 22 in 2012, where does that put him? Okay, went and got his degree he went to Oral Roberts University and got a degree in music and theology. Okay, after that, he became a pastor following his father's footsteps. 2013, he quit his job and left his religion. He had gotten married at 23. He was a devout Christian, but he had a crisis of faith and left the church. And in 2016, he restarted his life and became a fitness model. He decided to become a personal trainer. He was living in California, and was living with his parents at that time. And just felt, in his words, that he had felt more depressed and unfulfilled than ever after taking first place at the men's physique bodybuilding competition. In 2017, he had a profound spiritual awakening, spending what he says it was 2 weeks feeling nothing but sublime bliss and was in a kind of Buddha state. He woke up 2 weeks to the day and had a thought pass through his mind, quote, "Wow, I have been in this state for 2 whole weeks. I wonder if I'm enlightened now," end quote. That egoic thought, according to him, it was an egoic thought. He didn't catch it, and before he knew it, his ego came back online with a fiery vengeance, and he was cast. He says, quote, because I want to quote him. This is what's written. "I was seemingly cast out of the heaven world I was living in, and I felt it slipping through my fingers more each day as the ego came back into the captain's chair of my mind." In 2019, he started his YouTube channel, which blew up and marked the beginning of his spiritual online career. He started talking about the law of one, becoming, in his words, obsessively studying this text. And to his surprise, there was very little content around the law of one. And so he did a bunch of media, a bunch of YouTube videos around this material. He became very big. He gained a lot of followers very quickly. In 2021, he had a Kundalini awakening. After a decade of devoted spiritual seeking, he writes, and a few years of Kriya yoga practice, he began experiencing very strange physical and physiological symptoms that he could not explain. He had an intense heart chakra opening that he states felt like being on MDMA. That is when he began this. It says at the very last paragraph of this began my obsession with understanding this neurobiological process that causes it to happen and how to facilitate it. Now, Kundalini awakening is one of the main focus areas of my teaching in 4D University. 4D University is his like online academy where he teaches various spiritual uh, topics and philosophies, and that is what's on his website. Okay, so with that being said,
I had to control my face the whole time.
Annamarie, please tell me your thoughts. Like, let's start
Yeah.
grand, let's start big, and then we'll like start to like chunk down.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because I'm usually very like diplomatic in the way that I show up online, and I'm still going to be diplomatic because I think that's a natural part of who I am. There were so many things that were so wrong about what he shared, and then you sharing his background so thoroughly did not help how I was feeling. Because to be quite honest, you having an experience of experiencing depression or feeling lost, existential dread does not qualify you to coach, treat, or talk about mental illness at the level
Let's be
that you are.
Yes, and let's be honest, guys.
Yeah.
This gentleman, yes, has full reign to online in America and like across the world be able to say anything that he wants. But
Yeah.
as I
Oh,
said in the beginning, like this gentleman has like over 160,000
yeah.
followers, probably millions of followers across all of his different platforms.
Yeah.
From Instagram, if he's on TikTok, I don't know. I don't follow him on TikTok. I follow
Yeah.
him on Instagram. On YouTube, certainly. Like he is
Yes.
reaching
A
hundreds of
lot.
thousands of
Yes.
individuals.
And you can say whatever you want, of course. I could go online and say a gander of things that have no scientific evidence. And the thing is, and this kind of, I guess, segues into my first issue, is that for things to be helpful for people, you have to bridge the science and the energetic. You can't just say all the woo-woo and all the things, because you know why? I showed this video to a friend I was with this weekend, and she's been struggling with certain like depressive symptoms. And she was like, oh, maybe he's right. Maybe I am just, I'm the problem. Like, that is what it did. It said, she thought I am the problem. You know why? Because these issues that people are experiencing are also in the ego, and the ego is going to blame self because the ego can control self. And that is detrimental to these people who are already suffering. To say bipolar and borderline, and then especially things like depression, is insane to me, because especially bipolar is not just like, to me, it's not just something that can be treated with energetic healing. It is something that has to be also paired with medication, because there are a lot of chemical things. And of course Abby can speak more to the medical or the chemical side of it than I can, but these are conditions where there is so much more happening. It's not even speaking to the fact that a lot of times people have entities that are attached to them. They have ancestral things that are actually programming their bodies and their minds to be this way, because our cells take the energetic information from, yes, the soul contracts, but also our lineage, and creates an outcome or creates stories and behaviors. And that is essentially blaming each individual person for the condition that they're suffering from. Of course, there's a level of accountability and responsibility and showing up and looking for active treatment, of course. And also, a lot of these people some of the best people I know have struggled with depression, and they are the most selfless people. In fact, they are always trying to serve other people. They are always trying to pour into the world. They are always trying to make other people feel better. My past partner who passed from suicide, he was so focused on making sure everyone else serving other people, not from a place of I need to, but from a place of that filled his bucket. And he still struggled with mental illness, and he still ended up taking his life, unfortunately. It was such an irresponsible post to make, because now you're giving these people who are already thinking that they're a burden, they're to blame. And sure, you can say that's too self-obsessed, but they're trying to serve other people. And most of us were taught to be very self-aware of how our actions impact others. And it's almost like he's trying to explain to people to not be human. Humans are going to think about themselves. Our bodies are programmed to be that way. Our brains are, that is how we survive. And so I don't appreciate or like the intuitive side of the world that's like, let's ascend past being human. You can't ascend past your human experience. Your soul chose to be a human during this lifetime. If you were meant to ascend and do like live this whatever enlightened life, you wouldn't have chose Earth as your learning place. You can't
Yes.
ascend past your human experience. You're going to suffer. You're going to have moments where things don't work out the way you want to. You might even have moments of anxiety and depression. And people with personality disorders, they're just stuck in their trauma. Like there's so much more to it. And to just say that it's just because you're too self-obsessed, that is the most bull crap I've ever heard for energetically bypassing. And especially for somebody who you are not working with these people, you are not seeing them, you are not treating them, you don't understand what the scientific, the clinical side of it. And so in my opinion, that's not your area of expertise. If you want to talk about the law of one and you want to talk about your journey and in religion, because it also feels very religious based, like be of service, think about the people all of the time. Okay, well, that's basically what I was taught as a Christian, because I come from a Christian background too, and that feels very similar to what I was taught.
Yes.
And I know
Put yourself on the back burner and serve others. And yes, ultimately, like the pastors, the preachers, they'll all be like, you know, you should be serving from a place of, you know, not self.
Yeah.
You should be serving from a place of, I only want to give, I'm not keeping that score sheet. But what they don't say is, remember to not serve to your detriment,
Yeah.
because all of a sudden you're serving, but you're on the back burner.
Yeah.
You're not taking care of yourself now. But you know what? No worries, because in God's eyes, like as long as you be serving,
Yeah.
and you're serving, you know, not for yourself, not for your gain,
Yeah.
right? Then you're doing the right thing. And of course, you guys, of course, like I want to point out just at this moment that I realize how that sounds.
Yeah.
I realize that it sounds like I am sitting here saying, Aaron, you are sitting here telling people that at the end of the day, like as long as you be serving, and you know what, don't worry about yourself. Guys, this is why we're having this discussion, because language is so
It
fucking
matters.
nuanced.
It
It
matters.
matters. It matters. There's 100,000 ways in which you can take one sentence and transform it into something that should be good, is now bad, and now something that's bad could be taken as good. And so, yes, and this is why we are having this conversation with people who are actually medical professionals, who have also spent fucking time certifying in intuitive, energetic ways and understanding, and who are master healers, who do this for a fucking living, who are actually treating and like teaching people how to do this appropriately from both the physiological, biological standpoint, as well as the intuitive standpoint. This is our lane, guys. This is actually
This is
our
like
lane.
actually, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was like,
This is actually our fucking lane.
I have a master's degree in addition to years of experience, and I've worked with hundreds of people, but like, you know.
Bachelor's in neuroscience,
Yes.
studied for 4 years. Now with a bachelor's in nursing, dealing with in the emergency room, dealing constantly with people who are depressed, anxiety, bipolar disorder, manic depressive, like all of these different things. Like I see this daily.
Yeah.
And have for over a decade.
Yeah.
Decade at bedside, guys.
Yeah.
Decade at bedside. Like, and then with both of us owning our own businesses, intuitive businesses.
Yeah.
This is what we do. So
on a daily basis.
This now you just heard like our history, our story, right? Our degrees. Compare that, right, to Aaron Abke. Now, I once again just want to understand, like tell everybody, I sound a little heated, and I'm going to be honest, I fucking be heated. Why? Because like Annamarie said, like people who are actually suffering through this stuff right now, this is the human experience in which they chose, their soul chose. They are going to watch this and they are going to think even worse of themselves than they were already potentially thinking of themselves. They're already going to immediately go down the road of, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
man with hundreds of thousands of followers must be right. He's a pastor. He is an online personality. He's an influencer.
Yeah.
Influencers influence people, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why they came up with the fucking word.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the other dangerous aspect of this for me that I see is that for those people who aren't struggling with this, who also have no understanding
Yeah. And
of
so they're going to say, see,
any
this
perspective.
is, yes, I was saying that this weekend. And one of the things that
Please, like finish that sentence. So
Yeah.
how are
Yeah.
those individuals
So
who
those
aren't suffering with
the
that
people
going
who
to
aren't
view
suffering, who think that this mental health and mental illness is a hoax anyway, they're going to say, see, they're just lazy. See, they're just selfish. See, they're just not strong enough. Like all the things that people say to invalidate another person's experience. It's also going to be another way to just support, what's the word I'm looking for? Dehumanizing people who are suffering in mental illness. And what I will say is I am very heated. And also I watched this thing back to back, and I was trying to pull out nuggets of like, God was speaking in some way through, like there has to be, and there is. What I will say is he scratched the surface. So if we want to view the energetics of mental illness and mental health as a well, okay? So we picture a well is very deep and it's dark, and you have to really look hard to see different things. He got like an inch, maybe a foot into the well. Because when we look at it, like the self-obsession he's talking about is a byproduct of the ego. It's coming from the ego. The mind, there's 3 levels of self: energetic, physical, and cognitive. The mind is the translator for what's going on in your raw energy, right? Your energetic form. And then your physical body. So your physical body carries memory. It's like, it's your largest intuitive tool. It also is taking information from the external. So the mind is just translating those two back and forth, back and forth. So if you're struggling with self-obsession, if you're struggling with intrusive thoughts, if you're struggling with like just negative thinking, and like you feel it all in your mind, like that, really like the top of the head, just the head in general, it is a byproduct of something else that's going on energetically. And that is another issue I had, is you're just touching the surface. You're saying, this is it. This is the thing, guys. And it just gives so much leeway to people who already discriminate and are ignorant and judgmental of people who suffer from mental illness. And then also it burdens people who are struggling with mental illness, who are already trying their best most of the time. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but most of the people that I know, they are going to take that and go, oh yeah, I see, I knew I was a burden. See, I knew it was a me problem, and I'm not like, this is, and they're just going to use it for shaming themselves more. It's going to isolate them more. And that's part of the issue, is there was no forethought on how this impacts other people. And as a leader, it is our responsibility to figure out how we communicate things. Sometimes when I'm in readings, I have clients who don't have memories of their childhood, and sexual abuse shows up in the reading. I can see it. I see what happens. And I have to be very specific, which is why it's helpful that I am a trained, licensed therapist, of how I communicate what is showing up. Because and I don't just splurge out and go, I saw X, Y, and Z. I go, there is some trauma showing up from, but there's a specific way I communicate it, so as to not re-traumatize them or make the issue worse. I only communicate what is going to be the most healing for them. And I saw it in live time of how this video impacted somebody currently struggling, and it was not healing for them. I had to then talk my friend through, actually, no, this is a byproduct of your ego. This is what's going on in your ego. This is what it is being fed energetically. This is what is being fed from your body. This is actually the root issue. Do you have any other questions?
Yes. And the other aspect too that we haven't touched on, that I do want to very quickly, is the caretakers of the individuals or the family members of the individuals who are suffering from this. Do you understand that? And not you, obviously, but like listeners, do y'all understand that as a caretaker, as a parent
Mhm.
or a spouse or just whatever, right?
Child,
Or
even a
an
child who's
or
observing their
actually like
parent
a
with
care,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
actually a caretaker. Do you understand how much resentment and bitterness that could be brought out of a caretaker when you watch this? And you say to yourself, oh, they're just self-obsessed and they're just self-absorbed and they're just narcissistic or they're
They just
X,
focused
Y,
on
or Z
serving
thing.
people, they would be better.
Like, do you understand how much like potential violence you could end up, abuse, neglect, you could end up bringing out in a caregiver because they're now looking at whatever behaviors are happening
That's so
and
fast.
see
Yeah.
that as something completely like not under their
Yeah.
control or whatever. Like I was so baffled by the multiple levels of dehumanization. You said it, the possible abuse that could happen coming from this video. It was so irresponsible. And like you said, if we're going to be honest and we're going to be fair about this,
Mhm.
which is very
Yeah.
important to me, and to
Yeah.
be fair about this, like for as much as was wrong with that, now there is not a whole lot that is good about this. I will be honest. Like if we have to like bring this, boil this down to like percentage, I would say this is 99% terrible and
Yeah.
only 1% good, and that's me being kind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But
that's
I'm
if the people who are listening are at a higher frequency,
well-adjusted,
well
higher self,
adjusted, empathetic. Like,
yes,
it's-
willing to think critically about this whole
yes.
thing. And you guys
Yes.
listen up. Like Annamarie and I are critical thinkers. We are literally trained to be critical thinkers. It's our base personality. Like we actually watched this multiple times. This was not the first time that we had watched this together,
Mhm.
or like listened to this. Like we actually went through and like critically thought about this. And what I will say that is anything of a good is that like at the end of the day, yes, like serving people is important and serving people without the score sheet absolutely like is a good thing. But let me also point out that like the information in the video, what he was talking about was ultimately different from what he put in the caption. From what he put in the caption, it seemed more like his whole intention was to say like God wants you to have moments or like a goal of selflessness, but not selflessness in that you become abusive towards yourself or
Yeah.
neglectful of yourself, but and he said it in the video, to love your neighbor as yourself. This idea that we are all interconnected, we all have an impact on each
Yeah.
other.
A
And
gift
so
to
when you can
share.
see yourself
Yes.
as the person that you're standing next to, regardless of their mental or emotional or physical state, that
Mhm.
you will be able to have more empathy, more compassion. You'll be able to be one with source and one with each other. And that is actually a very powerful statement. And it is very true. But that is presupposing a level of health and self-awareness
Mhm.
and um higher authority
Mhm.
that is not that is not 100% capable within the particular set of individuals to which he ultimately was talking about in this
Yeah.
video. There is this 1% of goodness out of it, but when we're specifically talking about those with mental illness, we have to understand that they are not necessarily, not even necessarily, I'm not going to mince my words here. Those with mental illness are not the appropriate group of individuals in which we are going to want to expect to be able to listen to that and automatically have this spiritual awakening about why their soul decided that they needed to have this particular experience in this life.
Yeah.
It is irresponsible of
Yeah.
Aaron to have assumed that that was going to be the thing. And maybe if he is brave enough, if he's courageous enough to come and have a conversation with me, I am more than happy to have the conversation with him and to listen to why he decided to make this short. I think it's something like 2-minute clip, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably from like a longer episode, which I would be interested to potentially listen to just to see if there's maybe something else I can pull from. But yeah,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
just even thinking, I was like, you know, it's one thing to want to talk about mental health and mental illness, especially if he's somebody who experienced depression, experienced existential dread, as I call it, when you don't know what you're doing and you just feel really depressed about it. But to specifically drop like bipolar as an example, bipolar is one of the more extreme mental illnesses, especially because it can come in different variations. So if you're going to talk about mental illness, it's important to be aware of the different variations, the different symptoms. So you can have bipolar disorder with psychotic features. That is hallucinations. It looks like schizophrenia. Are you saying that their hallucinations are a result of being too self-obsessed? Because that is something where like people are not in control of. It would be the same as him saying, my seizures that I have are because I'm too self-obsessed, when they're not something that I physically control. And so
Right.
that is something else where I'm left with all these questions, because did he do the research and the due diligence of understanding what is it actually like to live as a person with one of these mental illnesses, one of these essentially like disabilities. Like for a lot of people with bipolar disorder, unless like they are on regular medication and their treatment is working, it can feel really hard to go through life. And of course, there is a certain, what I will say is from what I've seen with all the work that I've done, is there is a certain population of people who would benefit from focusing a little bit more on like gratitude. So if I try to like pull
Yes.
information from, it's like sitting in gratitude, being grateful for the people around you, sharing your gift, the gift that you feel the most aligned to share with the world, instead of just being like, oh no, people won't like this, people won't like that. Like I can pull some of that information from there. But again, I'm very deeply critically thinking, and I have been in this field, and I've been in the self-development, I've been in the mental health, like all the things that I can pull that information from. And there is a small population where I would say, you know, if we focus on what you can do in the world as opposed to other people, I won't even categorize it under a specific diagnosis, because to me it
Yeah,
just
because you
depends on the
really
person.
can't.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that is
This
such
is
a
individual
small,
based.
yeah, but that's such a small amount of the population, because a majority of the population is actually suffering because they put everyone else first. And
Yes.
they are so much so that energetically we take on shit from our parents, we take on shit from the people around us. So then we're living these realities that are based off of beliefs and traumas, not just from our own lives, from other people. And it makes me, I would love to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him, either in person or over Zoom. I would love to sit down. I'd put this on camera. I would love to be able to really get your perspective, Aaron, on why it is that you decided that this was a good thing to talk about. Why you felt like this was something that you should express.
Mhm.
I would love to know what you have done, like research wise, like where are your receipts? I think that that's really important. I think that that's something that, in a time where everybody is shouting misinformation, disinformation, do your own research. I think it's really important for us to honor like what you have done, like to understand the conditions that you specifically pointed out, but also all of the other, issues that you lumped into
Yeah.
this particular video. Because you didn't just say specifically that you were only speaking about bipolar. You
Yeah.
said all mental illness.
Yeah.
Made the title, the hook of your video, is mental illness a sourced from um comes from self-obsession. That was, I paraphrase, I will say that
Yeah.
that's not a direct like line, but that paraphrased,
Yeah.
utilizing your main words. I would
Mhm.
love to know, like, was this just clickbait? Like, are you honest? Can you be honest
I had a
enough
theory
with
that it was
saying like
that.
this is just clickbait for you? Did somebody in your camp, somebody in your team think that, well, because mental illness right now is like a hot topic, like you should come up with just sitting down and like making this tidbit? I would love to know the answers to those and so many other questions.
Yeah.
And you made mention, I do want to bring this up because you said it, and I think that it's really important for people to understand. You brought up the 3 levels of human, and I just want to be very clear, as somebody who did study the brain, who did study the neurochemical aspects of the brain, and who has continued to study that because of my work as a nurse, that from a physical standpoint, specifically speaking about those with bipolar disorder
Mhm.
and with depression. And I want to be very clear, there are different types of, there are two that I know of that I
Yeah.
speak to with my clients. There is situational depression, which
Mhm.
I would go on a short limb. I'm going to land in my mastery here. I'm going to go on a short limb and say that the depression in which Aaron speaks to on his website was situational depression. What does
Yeah.
this mean? This means that it was the circumstances of his life in which he found
Yeah.
himself that was causing him to feel a deep sense of lack of self-worth, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of grief potentially, and otherwise colloquial term of depression. But there is another more severe form of depression, which is called chemical depression. And that is not based on what is happening in your life. It's not about who you've lost. It's not about what traumas you have gone through, although those can definitely contribute to an even more severe form of that.
Yeah.
But chemical depression means that your brain, your physical brain, cannot produce the amounts of dopamine, serotonin, all of these happy chemicals that are exuded in your body when you experience something quote unquote happy or joyful or reward. It actually physically cannot produce those. So I need everybody to hear that and understand that this is not a person not caring enough about you or
Mhm.
not being of service enough. There is no amount of service that they're going to be able to do that is going to make their brains
Yeah.
automatically do what they're necessarily supposed to. Now, I will also say that yes, can spontaneous healing and miracles happen? Yes, absolutely. Both Annamarie and I believe in that so deeply. We absolutely
We see
believe
it all the
that
time too.
we
So
see it all the time.
So, yeah.
We absolutely do. Yes, there are miraculous things that can happen. Yes, your soul can renegotiate a contract and say that this is no longer an illness or disorder that your body is going to experience. Yes, we have seen where people are able to need medications and be able to come off of them. But these are very specific situations. You cannot broad brush these. This is not a generalization. We are trained clinical professionals that understand that you have to look at these case by case, and you
Yeah.
need to understand what is going on both a physical and an energetic level. You have to have the knowledge and expertise to go in and look at these people's physical bodies, their brains, but also looking at their contracts, their soul contracts, and their books of path and purpose, all these things. We will also speak about the woo, because the woo is important.
Yeah.
But it is, you cannot just say that if you fix one thing that it totally disregards the other. And like Annamarie says, and I want to bring it back to this because it's so important as well, that you cannot evolve, you cannot enlighten yourself past the
You
human
can't, yes.
experience.
Yeah. And that's where, I watched a couple more, like some more of his stuff after that video and to prepare for today. And what I will say is there's a lack of grounding. Like there's a lack of like, almost like and again, I don't know this man, and there's no hate, no shade, no pink lemonade, but you cannot ascend past your humanness. And that's what some of this feels like, is like, adapt to this thing. We're humans. We're gonna have thoughts. We're gonna have feelings. Some things are gonna be and that's okay. I don't want anyone who's listening to be like, oh man, I just hate being human. You chose to be human. Your soul needs to be human during this lifetime, and that's okay. What I want people to know who have heard that video is that it also takes, if you want to approach mental health from an energetic side, this is like what I do all day, every day, it takes physical, tangible steps. So him saying, just stop thinking about yourself, just focus on other people, that is not specific or tangible enough for the ego or for the body to bypass the ego.
Yes.
How is somebody who has lived in an, let's say they have a lot of trauma from home, or so let's say they grew up in an environment where one of the parents was not there, one of the parents was maybe violent, but like has all this, whatever. How do they get their minds to stop focusing on themselves when they were never taught what it feels like to be safe, so that they can start to think? That's even like critical thinking is hard for people Also because a lot of times we're focused on the survival. When we're in survival mode, we can't be creative and think about outside the box things. We can only
Yep.
think about, how do I survive this moment and the next moment after that? And so it goes beyond just, sure, you can teach that to people, but where are they starting at? Most people are starting at a level where their body is so heavy from trauma, from all the things they've experienced in life, and so tight. And then their mind is just translating all these things, and energetically they're connected to all these things, or that's even going beyond genetics and epigenetics and then ancestral stuff. It's just, you need a physical action step. That is, instead of the theory, he's speaking on exactly what he was trained in, theology. Theology is all in the thought. It's all in the mind. It's challenging things of like, well, what if we think about it like this? It's that everything in life can be changed through thought. That is not the case. And that's not the reality for a majority of people.
Yes. And that is because we have specifically chosen to live these particular lives as human. Now, yes, there are absolutely people who, like Aaron, he contracted in very clearly on living a really great, beautiful life that primarily done via high levels of self-actualization and thought. But what I will also like bring to the forefront here is that he was very well set up from the get. Like, we can go, like, you guys, I think there's so much dismissal of science, but so much of science has gotten us to where we are from every aspect, and even when we're talking about psychology. And I know there are a lot of people out there who believe that psychology is kind of like a fake science and like doesn't have any bearing, except for it has been proven time and time again that these are the types of behaviors in which humans exhibit over and over and over again in different situations and different scenarios. And yes, there are different, groups and whatever, but like the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is actually a thing. And the fact of the matter is that because he feels secure in all of his basic needs and desires, the things that keep him alive, right? He has a home. He is able to like feed himself. He is able to clothe himself. To go up the next rung, he's got a community that is solid and that he believes in. Going up the next rung, he has found love in his life, right? He's got a stable partnership. He is now a father. These are all things that I found like by like following him, guys. This is easy enough that he hides none of this. Like, he is able to then like also go and look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a real pyramid that it will show you. Like, the idea is that if you do not have those base things at the bottom of the pyramid set and like move up, at the very top is self-actualization. You cannot achieve self-actualization if you are lacking in these things that are farther down the pyramid. It just has been shown time and time again that it's not impossible, but it is incredibly difficult. And if I look at my life, I realize that if I did not have at all of these other periods of my life, hard or not, right? If I did not have where I was homeless, living out of my car, you honestly believe that I would have reached this level of like self-mastery and like higher ability? Like, no, no, no. Like, you don't see it. Show me some, and here is my challenge to the world. Show me an individual who feels insecure in their home. Now, understand me when I'm saying this. There are people who are living on the street, but they feel secure in where they call home. Whatever street, alley, whatever. I'm thinking about people who live like in California on like, I think they call it
The
Skid
different
Row.
examples,
Like, yeah, like there's a whole encampment. Like, you may find somebody who is incredibly like giving and like is incredibly like in their gratitude. But if you ask them, like, do you feel like your home is like secure and safe? Do you feel like you have a community? Do you feel like you have love in your life? I would bet you that if they have reached the self-actualization place, it's because all of those other answers are yes.
Yeah, at least to some degree, right? Because there's
To
always layers.
some degree.
Yeah.
To some degree, right?
Yeah.
And like if they do end up having like hard moments, and where they fall out of that and where they quote unquote fall out of higher self-actualization and fall into their quote unquote ego, it's because one of those base things has become unstable.
Yeah.
And it's when they are able to make those things stable again that they're able to move into that higher place,
Yeah.
right? Is there anything else? I think we've kind of covered a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean,
Like
yeah,
our
I
pain
think we
points.
covered like three parts of self. Science is as much as the energetic. We cannot continue moving on as a collective without both. That is like the way that it is going. If you're going to see the results that you want in a shorter amount of time, you have both. There's no ascending beyond your humanness. Yeah, I think that's, and I'll add one more thing. If you're going to take advice from an intuitive and you're going to work with an intuitive, make sure that they're at least grounded in some capacity, because you don't want an intuitive who spends most of their time floating off of Earth, or like trying to live a life that is not related to Earth, who essentially is trying to not be human. In addition to, you want an intuitive who is also in integrity, who is aware of that the words that they have impact, who is not just going to go into somebody else's energy, who is not going to, whose goal is, and I'm sure his goal is to do more good, but it also feels like there is an ignorance. And so it's important to do more research on the people that you're working with. I hear it all the time where they're like, oh, I have this intuitive, and it just did not feel. There are different levels and different frequencies of practitioners. And so if you want the best results, you really have to, it's the same that you would do research for a doctor or for anyone else in the field, especially because it's becoming more mainstream. It is so important that you guys also do research on your energetic and your spiritual practitioners as well.
Yes. Guys, I want to once again reiterate, I do not think that Aaron is deliberately out to hurt anyone. I do not think that he has no value. I absolutely will 100% say I believe he has value in some things, in some areas. I think he does. This was just not his lane. This is not his lane.
No,
In this regard.
Yeah.
I feel, and I am going to say out loud, that I think that the most responsible thing that Aaron could do in relation to this video is to take it down. I think that that is the most responsible thing that he could do. I don't necessarily think that he needs to, like, quote unquote, like, rake himself over the fire and like be like, I'm so sorry if I think he just needs to take it out. And I think that in the future, he needs to understand that if he wants to speak about something like this, then he needs to have either
bring an
myself or, more importantly, I think like Annamarie would be even a better option than me. I think there are other people out there in the world who are qualified to speak on this and who would help to direct his thoughts and his opinions around this in a way that would actually service his community and others who are going to find him and come to him. I invite him to stand in his integrity, because I do believe that he has it most of the time. But I do think that he missed the mark here.
I just think that it would be best if he just doesn't say anything else about mental illness. Just
please.
Yeah, please. Please.
I don't want to have to do he said what part 3.
Yeah. I was so close to like doing, on Instagram, you can do the dual or the response videos. And I really thought I still might, I honestly still might. I just had to really sit with like, does this feel like it's the right time for me to do this right now?
No, I completely understand. I wrestled with whether or not I was going to do this. I wrestled with whether or not we were going to say his name. Because I don't want to be that. I don't want him to come out and be like, you were defaming me. I'm not defaming you.
Yeah.
I'm simply a peer. I'm a colleague who has been doing this work, who has experience and knowledge in this, and I disagree with you. I respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously he will do what he feels like is necessary. He may never see this. I don't know.
Who knows?
I hope that he does. I do. I hope that he listens. I hope that he is, gains some insight from it. And I hope that if it's not from here and us, I hope that somebody says it, and I hope that it does get taken down. And not because of, him having breached some whatever, which he hasn't, like, has not breached any of IG's rules or
No.
anything like that. But I think just out of integrity and understanding why he's here and who he's here to serve and that he is here to help people, I hope that he recognizes that this actually does more harm than it does good. And it
No.
truly does go against what his mission is.
Yeah.
That he has written on almost every platform that he has.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I like you said so beautifully, no shame, no pink lemonade.
No, you know, nothing lemonade. Yeah, so much love, so much light,
Um,
and also.
yes, we got that one.
Exactly.
So guys, make sure to check out the show notes below. You will find all of Annamarie's info down there. You will find where you can follow her. Please do on Instagram. She is so knowledgeable. She is here for you. She's got so many different ways in which to work with her. Please, you'll find also all of my stuff. If this is the first time that you're here, we love you. Thank you so much for listening to Breath of Life Conversations. He said, what? Today, next episode, you will have a shits and giggles topic. I'm not sure what it's gonna be, but you know it's gonna be funny and it's gonna be like totally not important at all, I'm sure. I don't know, maybe it'll be something around like 21-year-olds who wear mustaches. I don't know. It'll be something fun. It'll be something fun. And yeah, and join us next time for the next Breath of Life conversations. Bye, y'all.
Bye.